A massive rescue effort underway after a U.S. Airways plane crashes into the Hudson River, sending passengers scrambling for safety in frigid waters. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chandra Bill.
And I'm Shannon Cake. Thanks for being with us tonight. An amazing scene unfolding at this hour after a U.S. Airways jet winds up intact in the water.
News Channel 5's Tim Malloy is gathering the latest details as they come into the newsroom. Tim, what is that?
Well, this is really something. As it unfolds, guys, this will become an extraordinary story of piloting skill and crew performance in a crisis when seconds counted. An aircraft of this size that has taken off simply does not make a successful water landing. As far as we know, no one has died. Everyone is off the plane safely.
The U.S. Airways A320, with 146 passengers and 5 crew members on board, flew into a flock of Canadian geese on takeoff from LaGuardia Airport. FAA sources saying the plane lost power in both engines. LaGuardia takeoffs are over the city. Clearly, the pilot had to make a split-second decision, and the Hudson River was the only option. In an extraordinary maneuver, he managed to bring the 75-ton, 150-passenger aircraft down in the Hudson intact. Passengers were visible in life rafts as ferry and watercraft came to the rescue. The plane, headed to Charlotte, would have had a good-sized load of fuel on it. There was no explosion, no fire, and incredibly, no breakup of the fuselage. Collisions with Canadian geese are one of the worst fears confronted by pilots. They can and have brought planes down in fatal accidents in the past. An aviation expert says the pilots had no more than 2 minutes to make their emergency landing in the Hudson. To do that, they would have been heading south on the Manhattan skyline, would have been off the left side of the plane. The plane was slowly sinking as boats pulled up alongside this afternoon. Police, fire, and Coast Guard units, all with docks on the Hudson, fortunately, got to the aircraft quickly. The plane went down near the aircraft carrier, the Intrepid. The A320 is a large aircraft with a range of more than 2,000 miles. They're used by U.S. Airways and JetBlue on flights into and out of PBIA. Flight 1559 was headed to Charlotte. It was to go on to Seattle. Late this afternoon, a passenger said this.
It was nuts, man. We took off, and the engine blew about 3 minutes into the flight. The left engine where I was sitting.
More from that survivor at 5:30. Up to 50 people have been taken to hospitals. Joining us now here in our studio to make sense of this is News Channel 5's aviation expert, David Bugelos. And David has flown every kind of aircraft just about as a commercial airline pilot and other kinds. David, first of all, your first reaction was, what a job by the crew.
Yeah, Tim, absolutely. The first and foremost, this is a story about the crew who did an exceptional job of putting this aircraft into the water.
Now, we understand that he got to 3,200 feet and then had to make his decision, and I guess he had to bail out to Teterboro Airport in Jersey. You know these runways. You've flown in and out of there. What goes through his mind? What could he have done?
Sure, 3,000 feet, you've probably got a minute and a half, 2 minutes on the outside to find a place to land, and that's not much. If Teterboro was not an option, you know you're right over the top of the city, Tim. There's no choices. Ocean was probably not a good idea because of the waves, and he thought that he'd probably lose the aircraft in there in a much worse status, so he chose the river, which was an excellent choice. It was probably calm, there wasn't any ice, it was smooth, and the aircraft did exactly what it is designed to do when it landed in the water.
How fast could he have been going, not to, well, he's in trouble anyway, so don't worry about stall. How fast was he hitting the water, and what does it say about the structural integrity of this aircraft?
Yeah, it's a great aircraft. It's used all over the world, very, very popular, and it's designed to do exactly what it was to do. The engines probably didn't shear off. He hit the water at 130, 140 miles an hour, and the flight attendants are trained actually to keep the doors closed to keep that watertight integrity where it's supposed to be. That's the reason it didn't sink.
I've flown into and out of New York a lot of times, as you have. It's all city when you take off, so he had no time and only a few options.
Yeah, once again, there's 148 very lucky people tonight, thanks to the skill of these two guys.
Quick thing, bird strikes. Have you ever had a bird go in an engine, and that has got to be one of your darkest fears?
Never in the engine, but we took 3 years ago up in New York, taking off out of Kennedy, and it really is. It's terrible, and these big geese apparently is what's been reported. That's exactly what happened, and these things can really bring down an aircraft. You put one in a turbine engine, you're finished.
David Bugelos, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Back to you guys.
Tim and David, thank you so much for your insight tonight. And again, a quick recap of what we know at this hour. U.S. Airways Flight 1549 took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York after 3 o'clock this afternoon. It was destined for Charlotte, North Carolina, and eventually to Seattle. It had 146 passengers on board, a crew of 5. We are told the pilot reported flying into a flock of birds, and as we were just showing you in those pictures a moment ago, the plane apparently wound up intact in the Hudson River. From what we can tell, it does seem that everyone survived this crash landing, with the U.S. Coast Guard and the New York City Fire Department responding and getting them quickly to boats and then to shore. Naturally, we're going to continue following this still developing story out of New York City. We'll bring you frequent developments throughout this newscast.